Thank you, Madam Chair. This country is born out of the soil of racism. Slavery is what built this country, free labor off the backs of Black people. For 250 years, Black people were enslaved in this country, and then for 100 years thereafter, we had Jim Crow apartheid imposed upon us. And then to say that in the 401-year history, we should now consider Black businesses to compete on the same playing field, starting from the same starting point as white businesses, some of which have been in existence in this country since, for 200-300 years. To say that those Black businesses must compete with those white businesses from a level playing field, it's impossible. And that's why affirmative action has always been necessary. And as it was said earlier today, if you've got high blood pressure and you take medication for it, just because your medication has produced equilibrium, does not mean that you stop taking the medication. So that's where we are in this country with the DBE program. And Mr. Ali, in response to Congressman Larson's question, you revealed some of the specific challenges that airport DBEs are grappling with to survive during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Are there any other challenges that minority airport concessionaires currently face that you want to bring to our attention? And are there any foreseeable challenges that DBEs are likely to face as they seek to compete in a post-pandemic recovery?
Yes, thank you, Congressman. I think it's important that we either focus on the short-term issues of, the underwriting requirements. The constraints of what's making the private sector investment in these public assets. I mean, you don't have the same type of collateral. You can't pledge the same kind of assets. You can't give people the same sort of security interest in the underlying assets of your business when you're doing this work. And so the crippling effect of there's a quote that when one community gets a cold, the other one gets pneumonia. I would say the other one may be getting COVID, and it's a slow kill. So it becomes quintessential that in these public-private partnerships that we're able to find resources like with the SBA in the EIDL loan program or the Main Street lending program, that there's some attention to not just providing resources for airports, but providing resources for the ACDBEs to be able to get maybe MAG abatement or minimal guaranteed fees abated. Right now, there's currently a $3.5 billion proposal in the Senate bill, which will include relief for concessionaires, and we're hoping that will be addressed maybe in the bill for the CR.
Thank you. Ms. Boyer, in your testimony, you argued for a national DBE certification process as opposed to the current process, which adheres to a state-by-state certification process. You contend that the 50-state certification process serves as an additional and unnecessary barrier to competition that women and minority-owned businesses already face. Do you have anything else to tell us about the difficulties that the 50-state DBE certification process poses to your company's ability to grow and compete? And do you believe that the 50-state certification process was put into place as an intentional barrier?
No, I certainly don't think it was an intentional barrier. Until something is lived, we have no idea to understand, what the challenges are with it. So I think the program that was put in place was a great start, but because of the challenges that we've had, it's just bared to light that we don't have the same opportunities as large companies that are more nimble, that can cross state lines. And when we develop a relationship with a large engineering firm, let's say, that uses our expertise, they want us to be their partners, and we both together have a better ability to win projects by moving from state to state. It's just that they can just move state to state and get a business license. We have to get a business license and then start a certification process. And then on top of it, we have to get a pre-qualification with the state that we're going to. So just to have that nimbleness of a unified DBE certification in the 50 states, I think it just takes a little bit of the challenge away. And any layer of challenge that we can eliminate just helps all of us.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, your company is certified in many areas, and one of your strengths has been that you are able to provide transit market research. In your company's work and research, have you uncovered disparities in transit availability and equity that perhaps larger private companies overlook? And what factors enable DBEs to be uniquely positioned to provide transit data that most affects underrepresented communities or communities facing transit inequity? And would a greater presence of DBEs on transit projects result in reducing transit inequity in underrepresented communities, underrepresentative communities?
Wow, that was a tall order. I'm going to try to remember the question. One of the things you mentioned, transit market research. So we know that transit agencies typically service 70% of their riders may come from low income or disadvantaged or underrepresented neighborhoods. What has helped us in the transit market research business is the ability to go out and talk to these folks to gather the information that's necessary for transit systems to make great decisions on routes and how they're serving their public. Being a minority firm and doing the market research, typically we hire people that look like us, so we're able to connect. One of the things that wasn't mentioned here is on the IDIQ and task order type contracts. A lot of times what's happening these days is that you see a lot of these type contracts where you are included in the team. And I hear the bell, your number is never pulled. So you're with a big firm, you're on the team, but because it's a task order contract, they'll just tell you your services were never required or never came up. And I've lost a lot of business on just that.
The gentleman's time has expired.